Welcome to Whispers and Confessions. There might be a twist waiting, so please make sure to watch until the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Let's begin right away.
I gasped softly as I felt his hardness press against my thigh. David murmured sweet words of affection in my ear as he began to move with careful, deliberate motions. I gripped his broad shoulders tightly as we shared this intensely intimate moment together. My name is Rachel, and I've been married for 20 years. Now that both my children have headed off to college, I've noticed a growing distance between my husband Jake and me. Our daily interactions have dwindled to quick hellos and goodbyes, him rushing off to work in the morning and coming home exhausted late at night. Even during weekends, he's glued to his laptop, buried in work, while I sit beside him, feeling increasingly alone. Looking back at our early married life, we were just like every other couple deeply in love. Our weekends were filled with adventures together, and we had this amazing connection where we could read each other's feelings just by sharing a glance. The intimate moments we shared were special. Every night felt like a beautiful celebration of our love, filled with passion and deep emotional connection. But life has a way of changing things. As the years rolled by, that fiery passion slowly dimmed. Between raising kids and Jake's endless pursuit of career advancement, our relationship took a back seat. Our bedroom, once a special place for us, became just another place to crash at night. Those passionate embraces we used to share? They've been replaced by quick pecks and casual hey there's. Then came a turning point. During a routine checkup, my doctor mentioned I needed to exercise more. That's when I decided to join a local gym, a small decision that excited me. It felt exciting to finally do something just for myself after what seemed like forever. I remember my first day at the gym like it was yesterday. I stood there, feeling completely out of place among all the fancy equipment and fit people bouncing around with endless energy. Even though I wanted to shrink into a corner, I managed to gather enough courage to sign up. First time here? A friendly voice broke through my nervousness. I looked up and saw a man smiling warmly. I'm David, one of the trainers. Don't hesitate to ask if you need any help. When I met David's gaze, I was struck by his kind eyes. Despite his tall, athletic build, there was something genuinely comforting about his presence. Thanks, I managed to say with a shy smile. I'm actually completely new to this whole gym thing. I'm not really sure where to begin. When I looked at him with worried eyes, David put me at ease with his gentle voice. He patiently explained how to use each piece of equipment and walked me through a personalized training plan. His thoughtful approach made me smile naturally. Over the next few weeks, going to the gym became a regular part of my day. I found myself having more conversations with David. His laughter was contagious, and I admired how professional he was in his training. Rachel, David asked one day, his expression turning serious. Does your family know you've been coming to the gym? I let out a heavy sigh before answering, yeah, I mentioned it to my husband. But he barely seemed to notice. Actually, it feels like he's not interested in anything I do anymore. David's eyes showed understanding as he nodded. I know exactly what you mean. Things at my house aren't much different. My wife and I barely talk these days. So trust me, Rachel, you're not the only one going through this. As we sat there, we started opening up about our marriages, sharing our deepest concerns while looking into each other's eyes. I could see the same loneliness and yearning in his warm brown eyes that I felt in my heart. In these quiet moments, David dropped his professional demeanor and showed me his vulnerable side, just a regular person dealing with marriage struggles. We talked honestly about how empty our marriages felt, how the communication had broken down, and how the spark had faded away. After thinking for a moment, David carefully brought up something unexpected. Have you ever heard about wife swapping? A friend of mine tried it and said it actually helped their relationship. I was surprised by what he said, and my eyes went wide with surprise. But I couldn't help feeling a bit interested. Part of me felt guilty even considering it, while another part felt excited about trying something new. Could this be what our marriage needed to break out of its rut? What would it mean for Jake and me? And what about David and me? These questions and emotions swirled in my mind for days afterward. I found myself constantly thinking about this taboo idea of wife swapping. That weekend, after finishing my workout, I was relaxing with David on one of the comfortable lobby couches. Hey, by the way, I asked curiously, where are you from originally, David? David said, I'm from New York. I went to Columbia University. No way, I exclaimed, genuinely surprised. Columbia? That's crazy. My husband went there too. David's eyes grew wide. Wait a minute. Is your husband Jake? In an amazing coincidence, it turned out David and Jake had been college buddies, even belonging to the same club back then. Talk about a small world, David said with a knowing smile. That evening, I decided to bring up the topic with Jake over dinner. Sweetheart, I started gently. You'll never guess who I ran into at the gym, your old college friend David. Remember him? Jake stopped eating as his face lit up with recognition. David? Wow, I haven't heard that name in ages. How's he doing these days? I smiled warmly. He's actually working as a fitness trainer now. I was thinking, maybe we could all get together for dinner sometime. After looking surprised, Jake's expression soon softened into a genuine smile. You know what? That would be really nice. That weekend, the three of us met at an upscale restaurant. The atmosphere was relaxed and friendly as we shared wine and stories from the past. David playfully nudged Jake. Some things never change, huh? Still the workaholic I remember. Jake's face flushed as he chuckled sheepishly. Look who's talking about changes, Jake shot back with a grin. A personal trainer? That's quite the career switch. David smiled proudly. When you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work at all. Watching their easy banter, I caught glimpses of the younger Jake, the college version of my husband I'd never known, full of life and passion. Later, as Jake and I walked home under the starlit sky, I gathered my courage and slipped my arm through his. Jake, I began softly. Seeing you with David tonight made me realize something. You used to be so full of life and passion. Lately, it feels like we've been drifting apart. Don't you think we need something to shake things up a bit? Jake stopped in his tracks, looking worried and interested at the same time. My heart was racing as I watched his reaction. Taking a deep breath, I continued, speaking quietly. David mentioned something interesting about couples trying something called wife swapping. It's supposed to help people see their relationships in a new light. I know it sounds crazy, but maybe it could help us rediscover that spark we used to have. Jake's eyes widened with shock. How could you even suggest something like that? What made you think of this? Are you saying there's something wrong with our marriage? That night, an uncomfortable silence hung over our bedroom. As I lay under the covers, I second-guessed my bold suggestion. Next to me, Jake was deep in thought as he stared at the ceiling. I could see the mix of confusion and intrigue dancing in his eyes. The following morning, Jake remained unusually quiet. While he went through his usual routine of reading the newspaper and sipping coffee at the breakfast table, I could tell he was still processing everything. His eyes held that same thoughtful expression. Gathering my courage, I decided to talk about what happened last night. I reached across the table and gently placed my hand over his. I know I brought up something shocking last night, I said softly. But I really want us to work on our relationship. Don't you feel like we need something to shake things up? Jake set down his coffee cup and sighed deeply. When he spoke, his voice was gentler than before. You know what? I've been thinking about it, and you're right. I haven't been the most attentive husband lately. I'm sorry for not seeing how much you were hurting. I've actually been feeling the distance between us too. But wife swapping, that's a pretty big step, isn't it? Looking into his eyes with hope, I carefully suggested, maybe we could give it a try? I'm nervous about it too, but I think it might help us understand each other better and maybe even strengthen our love. We can always stop if either of us feels uncomfortable. This only works if we're both completely on board. Jake fell silent again, his forehead creasing in thought before gradually relaxing. When he finally looked up at me, his eyes were filled with warmth. "All right, let's do it. But we need to take things slow and make sure we respect each other's boundaries throughout this whole process. I really hope this brings us closer together." Relief washed over me as I squeezed Jake's hand. Our eyes met, and we exchanged tender smiles. While excitement bubbled up inside me at the prospect of this new chapter in our relationship, there was also a flutter of nervousness in my stomach. But we were in this together, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. David agreed to our proposal, and his wife Melissa joined our arrangement. Melissa was an elegant woman in her late 30s who immediately caught everyone's attention. Her petite frame was toned from regular workouts, and she moved gracefully. What stood out most was her radiant smile and wavy brown hair that complemented her gentle face. From the moment we met her, Melissa's warm personality and youthful spirit made everyone feel at ease. I noticed how Jake's eyes would light up whenever she spoke, clearly drawn to her natural charm. Over several dinners and long conversations, the four of us developed a strong foundation of trust. One evening, David made a suggestion that would change everything. "How about we all go to a spa resort for the weekend?" he suggested. It might be the perfect setting to explore our new arrangement. Without hesitation, we all agreed and started planning. When the day of our trip finally arrived, I felt butterflies in my stomach, a mix of nervous energy and excitement for what lay ahead. The luxury resort was nestled in a stunning natural setting, offering private spa facilities that seemed designed for couples like us who were exploring new relationships. Not wanting to waste any time, I invited David to join me in the outdoor jacuzzi. "You know, it's funny," I said, settling into the warm water. "It feels like only yesterday you were showing me around the gym equipment, and now here we are." David smiled warmly. "I know what you mean. But Rachel, I've been drawn to you since that very first day at the gym." My pulse quickened at his words. As our eyes locked, David reached out and gently ran his fingers through my hair. He leaned in, his lips meeting mine in a tender kiss. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I really like you." And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I meant every word. Without a word, David pressed close together until our bodies touched in the warm jacuzzi water. An electric shiver coursed through me as his strong hands encircled my waist. His lips traced a path down my neck, drawing an involuntary soft moan from my lips. The waves lapped around us, making our passion grow stronger. When his muscular chest pressed against my breasts, I could feel his heart pounding in time with mine. His fingers trailed down my back with gentle touches before gently cupping my bottom, igniting an irresistible desire within me. Our lips met in a deep, passionate kiss as his hands explored my most intimate areas, making me tremble with exquisite pleasure. As our breathing became more rapid and ragged, I wrapped my legs tightly around his powerful thighs. I gasped softly as I felt his hardness press against my thigh. David murmured sweet words of affection in my ear as he began to move with careful, deliberate motions. I gripped his broad shoulders tightly as we shared this intensely intimate moment together. The water rippled with each of our synchronized movements, heightening our passion with their rhythmic dance. The intimate connection between us grew more intense until we finally reached our peak together, our bodies trembling with intense pleasure as we gasped for breath. Basking in the blissful aftermath, I stayed wrapped in his strong embrace, cherishing every second. The warm water cradled our bodies while our hearts beat in perfect harmony. I melted into his touch as David softly kissed my forehead, pulling me even closer against his chest. Our desire for each other quickly rekindled, and we made love again and again, each time discovering new heights of pleasure. Time seemed to stand still in our private paradise, where nothing existed except the soothing sound of flowing water, our synchronized breathing, and two souls completely absorbed in each other. In that moment, I discovered feelings I had never experienced before. Being with David was completely different from being with Jake. My heart would skip a beat and race whenever he was near. His tender touch and loving gaze made me feel truly cherished, and every moment we shared brought pure joy. Our connection went far beyond the physical. We shared a deep emotional bond built on understanding and compassion. David had this amazing way of truly listening when I spoke, making me feel heard and valued in a way I hadn't felt in years. I fell more in love with him every day, and I could envision countless beautiful moments ahead of us. This wasn't just some fleeting encounter, it changed my life completely. Through my relationship with David, I rediscovered parts of myself I thought were lost forever. This deep connection made me feel alive again, giving me hope that my life going forward would be richer and more fulfilling than ever before. Meanwhile, Jake and Melissa found themselves enjoying a peaceful walk together. As I discovered later, their conversation flowed effortlessly, showing new sides of themselves. Jake, typically known for his serious demeanor, made Melissa laugh with his jokes, while Melissa's sweet nature and radiant smile completely won Jake over. Their natural chemistry created an atmosphere of warmth and comfort between them. As they continued strolling, their connection grew stronger with each step. In a moment of pure instinct, Jake found himself pulling Melissa into a gentle embrace. Though he quickly stammered an apology for his spontaneous gesture, Melissa's warm response put him at ease. Unexpectedly, Melissa rose on her tiptoes and planted a soft, tender kiss on Jake's lips. This unexpected moment of intimacy made Jake feel something he hadn't felt in years, a spark of excitement and passion. Unable to resist the attraction between them, they rushed back to their room, where they could freely express their growing feelings for each other. After our weekend together, the four of us went our separate ways, each carrying new emotions in our hearts. But try as we might, none of us could shake off the deep connections we'd formed. David was the first to voice what we were all thinking. It feels wrong to end things here. Should we meet again? The memories of that night were still fresh in our minds, and we eagerly agreed to reunite. From that point on, our regular meetings became something we all looked forward to as our relationships blossomed and deepened. This became more than just an arrangement. We were experiencing genuine, deep-seated feelings for one another. Gathering my courage, I opened up to the group. I've come to realize that love isn't confined to just one shape or form. What we have here is special. We truly care for and cherish each other. While Jake will always hold a special place in my heart, I've developed real feelings for David too. What we have is special and different from traditional relationships. Even if others might not understand or approve, what matters is that we accept and support each other. What if we continued this special connection between the four of us? The four of us decided to move into neighboring houses, creating our own little community where we could freely visit one another. Though the neighbors raised eyebrows at first, we remained confident in our unique family dynamic. Our homes became meeting places for shared dinners, and weekends were filled with movie nights and competitive board game sessions that often ended in fits of laughter. As time passed, our individual relationships flourished in unexpected ways. Jake and I rekindled the spark we thought we'd lost after 2 decades of marriage, while David and Melissa's bond grew stronger through their shared experiences. Together, we created a beautiful balance, each person's strengths complementing another's weaknesses as we built more meaningful connections. When spring arrived, bringing its bright colors and new beginnings, we found ourselves enjoying a picnic in the park. The cherry blossom trees surrounded us in the gentle breeze, creating a magical atmosphere. If someone had told me a year ago that this would be my life, I mused, catching a falling petal. Jake squeezed my hand and replied with a gentle smile, "It's amazing how things turned out." David said softly, "I want us to experience countless more moments like this together." Melissa smiled as she added, "We'll always be together." Under the cherry blossoms, we joined hands and made promises for our future. Later that evening, we gathered on Jake's terrace, sharing a bottle of wine while stargazing. As we leaned against each other, talking about our dreams for the future, we felt completely at peace. Though we couldn't predict how our love would evolve, we were certain of one thing: our feelings for each other were genuine and deep. And really, that was all that mattered.